Welcome, Dr. Shabir.
Pleasure to be on.
The verse we're looking at, Dr. Shabir, is from chapter 4. It's verse 5. So it says, "Do not entrust to the incompetent any property of theirs for which God has made you responsible. Make provision for them from it, clothe them, and speak to them in a kind way." So what's misunderstood about this verse?
Well, it's interesting to see that in the classical books of tafseer, let's say we go to Ibn Kathir as a good example, because this is widely read among Muslims and quite cherished and respected. So thinking about what is meant by the Arabic word sufaha, which is translated, as you mentioned, as incompetent, sufaha could also mean foolish. Many Muslims know this word and the translation from another verse in the Quran, in the second chapter, 142, where it says, "Sayakulu sufaha'u minan nas," the foolish people from among human beings will say. And then the Quran replies to what they're saying. Now, to our present verse, Surah 4, verse number 5, it says, "Wala tu'tu sufaha amwalakum allati ja'ala Allahu lakum qiyama." Do not give the wealth which God has placed in your hands as a trust into the hands of the foolish ones. If I use that simpler translation, which you have read as incompetent. So now the classical commentators are asking, well, who are these foolish ones? Who are the incompetent ones? And they give various explanations. Maybe it's the servants, maybe it's the children, the orphans, and the women. And it's interesting how many of them said the women. Like you can find Ibn Kathir referring to Qatada and Mujahid, and citing great commentaries from the past, like Ibn Abi Hatim, who cites his father, who from somebody else, who said that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, even said that they are the women, except those women who are obedient to those who are in charge of them. So all of these commentaries go to place women in a subordinate position, in society, and especially under their husbands. And it's as if their wealth has to be administered for them by somebody else. Whereas just before this, the Quran said very clearly that men are to give the bridal gift, the dower, to their wives. And then if their wives were to give something of that back to them of their own accord, then they could enjoy the use of that. But this shows that women would be in possession of their own property and they could administer it the way they want. But for some reason, the commentators forgot that. And when they come to this verse, so they're dealing with verse 4, which so clearly shows that women could be in possession and should be in possession of their own property and to administer it as they please. And yet in the very next verse, the commentators, just dealing with this next verse in isolation of what has come before, are saying that it means women. And they even treat this in isolation of what comes after this, because what comes after this clearly explains the present verse. So verse number 5 says, don't give the incompetent ones the wealth to administer, you administer it for them. And the very next verse says, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحَ. Test the orphans until they reach marriageable age. فَإِنْ آنَسْتُمْ minhum rushdan fadfa'u ilayhim amwalahum. If you find them to be competent, then give them their wealth. And then when you do that, bring witnesses to show that everything is done up and above board, everything is fair and square. This is what belongs to the orphan. Now they're marriageable age. They have, this discretion, and they can use their wealth in a wise way. So the very next verse, verse number 6, explains verse number 5. But dealing with it in isolation, they found a way in verse number 5. I'm not saying that they're deliberately trying to do this, but this is the result, that they have reached an interpretation of the verse which is demeaning to women. Now, one might be asking, well, okay, so nobody's going to interpret it that way today. Well, we can't be so sure. And of course, it's become politically incorrect to popularize such an interpretation, but some people will be keeping such an interpretation, under breath. And this could inform the way in which they're treating women in general. general, and just their whole attitude towards women. And we ourselves, I have no other recourse than to turn to these great books of tafseer and exegesis. That's our starting point. That's where we begin. We have to read with filters. We have to be careful what we're reading. Now, these books are being translated into English. We have the tafsir of Ibn Kathir translated in a summary form in English. So some of the most egregious things are left out of the English translation, but still some are there. We have to read with a filter. And the tafsir of Al-Qurtubi is being translated as well, volume one after another. So we can see what's there in the classical tafsirs. We read them with a certain degree of reverence and great respect for the scholars who put so much effort into writing these massive tomes. And if they had not done that, we would be like at sea. We would be lost in with.
So what sort of filter? Like, how can an ordinary person read with a filter? What sort of filter should they have in mind?
I think very importantly, we have to be very careful about seeing connections between this and that. Like first there is a verse, and then somebody's saying the verse means this.
Yes.
So we should ask, what's the connection between that and this? Like, does it really? So the verse says foolish ones, and they're saying it means women. So how did they get from foolish ones to women? And now we have to think about the different social milieu as well. Like, what cultural presuppositions are the classical commentators working with? And do we have the same cultural presuppositions? Today, we wouldn't think that foolish persons mean women. We would think foolish persons mean foolish persons, right? But how did they get to women? Probably in their society at their time, this is how they were acculturated to believe. And that's what they wrote in the classical commentaries. But there's no connection between the word and the verse itself and what they arrived at. So we have to read things with a certain degree of circumspection, with a critical eye, not to find fault, but to see things from all directions, which is what criticism really is about, by seeing things from a variety of perspectives.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Media Hub, the new home of Let the Quran Speak.
Here we spread positivity and good. We help people experience the beauty of Islam and help them appreciate and understand Muslims.
This beautiful building we purchased at cost $2.3 million.
Yeah, we've already raised a third of that money, and with your help, inshallah, we can pay off the rest.
So we're looking for people who can give $1,000 each. If you can be part of the select group, that's amazing.
Otherwise, just please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help us continue this good work.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be a benefit to the Muslim community long after Safiya and I are gone.
Please support our work at muslimmediahub.com.
Your support is zakat eligible and tax deductible.
May Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.